Alrighty then. Hi, Team Flyer. Welcome back to the Always Believer podcast. I am your host, Ariana Redondo. And obviously, that was kind of a weird introduction, but why? Because I'm weird, because that's just what happens with me all the time. But yeah, this is a two-parter. This is the second part of obviously the first part with Valerie. So if you haven't seen or heard, better said, the first part of this, not only have you missed such an enriching, wonderful, beautiful story about her book, but also you have no idea what we're going to be talking about. So go back, listen to that one, please. And now, definitely starting once more on the second parter. Without further ado, Miss Valerie. Hi, hello again. How are you?
Hello. Welcome back, everyone. And thank you for having me on this. It was such a pleasure. We got to know each other through TikTok, and that's all I can say. I don't
know. it's definitely, oh my God, like, of course, the biggest thing that you had at that moment, better said, the thing that, brought attention or got my attention, there you go, if I can speak, is obviously Gilmore Girls, because that's a show that you worked on, and we talked about it in the first part, which we're going to talk a lot more, of course, about that as well. But also what we're saying with your book as well, between one thing and another. And on top of that, working in the industry, that's really cool. Being a woman who works in the industry as well, especially because I also that's part of my business, and that's where I'm leading it to. Like before in the first part where you were like talking about your friends making it big and whatnot, and like just being super proud of them. I'm like, yes, like I was also like, it's so exciting to see that. And it's something definitely that I want to continue to experience, because I love putting this message out there of like, wellness and mental health and all these sorts of things that we'll get into as well, and that everything happens for a reason. And that sentence actually links very well with the first part of the story, and that first parter, that literally there wouldn't be a book without Gilmore Girls, but there also wouldn't be Gilmore Girls, technically speaking, without your parties, your epic parties.
Yeah. We've had some fun ones for sure. So many interesting people have showed up randomly, and I will be working on shows all the time, and people will be like, yeah, I've been inside your house. And I'm like, oh, of course. Okay. And that means you've had my ice cream too.
One thing, you had two things. You had a really good time because you remember my party, and you had my ice cream, which is the most important thing.
They definitely remember that. They definitely remember that. You can't forget it, because I only give you a tiny amount, because I don't believe in huge portions either. I believe in small portions with really good flavor and good quality. Whereas the larger the portion, the less quality that they put into it, because they're just trying to sell you something for the cheapest amount possible. Whereas if you make it at home, you can make something that tastes so good that you just want to give it out in tiny bursts so that you will remember it forever. And like, I've given people drops of ice cream before, drops that have melted, and it's the last little tiny bit, and they're like, no, please give it to me. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, that was the best thing I've ever had in my life. And you're like, I literally gave you a drop I was going to wash away minutes ago, but you had me save it from the trash. And they're like, no, it was the best. I'm like, okay, cool.
Okay, I'm excited for my trip to LA to not only meet you physically and like have fun and just hang out, please, but definitely for your ice cream, and definitely get a signed copy of your book.
Are you allergic to any food? That's the one question I have.
Not that I know of, and I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to food, and I always try something once, because why the heck not, basically.
Then I'll take you on an adventure your taste buds will never forget.
Oh my goodness, all sorts of excitement. No, I love, once again, what attracted me to you, apart from like, of course, working Gilmore Girls, which obviously for me, it's like, oh my God, I grew up on the show, so to speak, because I also like, I started watching in the States, but then like I moved to Spain also, so like I didn't finish the show until I was like in my 20s, so it was like, I don't know.
Miss Celine, Alex Borstein, lives in Spain, right? She's in Barcelona.
You told me about that as well, that I want to like check that out as well, because I think it's so cool, like how technically the world is so small. Like when you told me that, like out of all the places, you're in Barcelona. And so not only that was a cool, facet of yours, I'm like, oh look, you worked on Gilmore Girls, it's really, really cool. But for me, I'm all about the vibe. So if you really know me, I'm like, I go where like more my energy feels just calm and cool and just fun and like free, and like I can be my quirky self. And I'm like, Valerie, Like anytime I see her on a live, like I'm just gonna like just talk to you.
I know. You know what? That's the fun thing about like, so a bunch of people started following me on TikTok because of Gilmore Girls, but then 99% of the time we're just hanging out in my house, chilling, and everybody just chats back
Exactly.
and forth. I mean, yesterday I'm sitting on the floor doing like organizing stuff into the cabinets, and someone was like, you know, this is something I would just do with my sister, just like hang out at her house. Like it's the thing that you kind of miss is just being with other people. And I've loved that I've been able to create this just a community on TikTok that, you know, they come in when they can, they say hi, they know each other, everybody supports each other, and it's fun.
I enjoy that so much. I miss it because we are 9 hours apart. So
Yes,
we do have a
yes.
9 hour difference. And which is huge. Obviously, I work a lot with LA, especially now more than ever, thankfully, because I'm really, really happy about that. But also we do have 9 hours, like right about now.
Yeah.
And so I don't really catch your lives anymore, which really blows. But because I do miss them, but also I love missing, I love not missing, I love both. I enjoyed watching the behind the scenes stuff that you do with Gilmore Girls, so we can definitely touch up on a little bit on that. But I love the hanging out parts.
Yeah.
And you, among other people, but you specifically have encouraged me to step out of my comfort zone and to just start doing more and more lives.
Oh,
So I
good.
just started recently, and I can talk to the camera. I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm more,
Yeah.
you know, getting more comfortable. But a live is a little bit different because you're like, well, I don't know what's there. I don't know. Not because I'm
Yeah.
scared precisely, but you know, it's kind of like, what do I, I can talk on a podcast, on my podcast, and I can talk like and make TikToks. But when it's live, it's like, what do I talk about then? Who knows? So
It's hard. Lives are they're a different beast
they
because
really are.
you're not one, there is always someone watching, even if they're not in the room.
Yeah.
Always. You have to remember, you have to be talking regardless. And because you don't know who you might inspire to pop in. So I always, every once in a while, if no one's in the room, I'll just introduce myself. Hi, my name is Valerie, and I, you know, used to work on this show 20 years ago that you might have watched, you know, like, or I'll talk about ice cream, or I'll talk about something, and it's wild. But the parts that I enjoy the most are when I'm doing something and everyone in the comment section is just, hey, how are you doing? Oh my God, I haven't seen you. What are you up to? And, or, hey, we'll do little like battles where I'll set a timer for 2 minutes and people will tap the screen as many times as they can. And whoever wins gets to pick whatever music we're going to play on the
That's so
live.
cute. I love that so much. Because
And
it
it
feels like a little
challenges
get
me.
together. Yeah.
It challenges me because one, I did not grow up really listening to a lot of modern music. And when I finally got into high school and I could pick which music I wanted to listen to, I gravitated more towards very old style, like 20s, 30s, 40s. I have a Victrola in my house, will play sometimes. And
My
so
goodness.
I gravitate to older, and I mean, I'm old as it is because, but even older than what I am. And so it's fun because they'll be trying to get their likes in so they can play Taylor Swift. I have a lot of Swifties in my comment section. And I
Apparently you
always joke
do.
with them.
Oh my goodness. And that's so interesting because that's a very young crowd. Not that I'm neither young nor old. I don't age is nothing but a number. But I believe, or what I'm seeing, there's people who are younger than me. Usually those are the Swifties. I'm just like, oh, she's great. Don't get me wrong. But
You know what's interesting about me is, okay, and this is something I touch upon in my book. When I was a little kid, I got bullied, and I never really felt at one with my generation, with my school age, whatever age I was in. I was always friends with the older kids or the younger kids, but never the ones that were in my grade. And I mean, to this day, my best friend is a year younger than me from high school, or a year older. Like, you know, they're always the ones that were not necessarily in your age group. And I don't know where I'm going with this. Why was I going this way? But basically, I do attract all ages of people in my TikToks. Like, and they're all welcome. Everyone's welcome, because
and that speaks wonders about you as well. And I love that. Like I always feel so safe and so welcoming, like whenever I'm like hanging out with you, regardless, you know, of like whatever the live is, you know.
yeah,
And the other day, so you showed up again in my life. You always do, once again. And I'm so excited to not only have you on the podcast, but to like have a conversation with you and just like be chill and like what we're
Yeah.
literally doing, because we're just two friends having a conversation. So I went live literally a few days ago, and I played Animal Crossing. I really like it a whole lot. I left it like it's a game on the Switch. It's a video game.
Oh, okay. I'm like,
there you go.
So old.
And I'm not the hugest gamer by any means. None of my content basically is gaming. But
Yeah.
I was like, I want to get out of my comfort zone. And lately, when I'm doing lives, actually, usually I'm in the city. So I show people like this is the Barcelona beach, and this is like something in Barcelona.
Wait,
so it's
I
like
want to see these lives.
Exactly. Turn your notifications on, please.
Yes.
But it's true, because I'm like, well, this is a perfect 2-in-1. They get the city, and I get to like tell them about the city, and little by little I'll start not losing, what's it called? Like
your inhibitions are gone.
Yeah, exactly, and just getting that confidence, because it is a whole different beast. So the other day I was like, all right, my inner child needs to play more. I'm definitely a little bit overly stressed. Let me go play Animal Crossing. I haven't played in a while. I'm totally new at it. I'm once again not a gamer. Let me do a live while playing Animal Crossing. Once again, like like you organizing your Tupperware or whatever, it was kind of one of those. And a lot of people just came in and they talked to me a whole bunch about like Halloween, because I love fall of Halloween. We talked a little bit about that, super random. But you popped up, not you precisely, but one of your followers and people who follow you, you happened to talk about me at some point of life. And they're like, oh my God, you're a Daniel, they always believer. I know you from Valerie. And I'm like,
oh, was it Vince? Was it Vince?
Yeah, Vince.
Yeah, because he lives in Barcelona. He lives in Spain too. I'm not exactly.
Yeah, he lives in Seville. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then after he left, I had a few other ones. I have to look up their names, but he was the first one as well. And I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That happens. All that you talked about me, which is really also cool, like low-key cool. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I'm leaving an impression. Yeah. She remembers me. But also because like it's that what we said, it's community. And they always believe it's all about community. Like the moment you're in, it's a safe space. All people are welcome, all ages, whatever you represent yourself with. It's just, be kind to one another, and let's just
100%
be real. That's pretty much it,
we need more of those people in the world, right?
Exactly. And like I said, when I was talking to you off air earlier and giving you kind of an introduction of my podcast, I'm like, whoever has listening either from day one or just one episode, what you see is what you get through my TikToks, through my podcast. It's like I'd rather be.
I 100% believe that when someone is listening, they are there at the moment that they need to hear. Like those pathways intersect at the time that you're supposed to hear it, because maybe you're supposed to pass that information on to someone else that needs to hear it. And so we're constantly crossing paths with people that form our journey in life, and to never disregard those things.
Yes, completely. Like that's what I say, like nothing is a coincidence. Everything happens for a reason. And we were supposed to connect, you and me. I remember because I just moved back to Spain in January, so technically not that long ago. And I wanted you to do my podcast, and like let's make it up. Like in that moment in time, I lived in Massachusetts, so we were only 3 hours apart, which obviously not that crazy big difference.
Yeah, you used to hang out a lot more.
Exactly. Yeah. I used to be like almost all the time in your lives, not only watching Gilmore Girls, but your regular hangouts. I had like scheduled, like I was there, and I remember talking to a lot of people through there and having that community as well, because I thought it was really cool. It was coincidentally the same time, actually, because once again, so I started watching Gilmore Girls when it aired in the States, but then I moved to Spain. Spain didn't have Gilmore Girls till like way later, so I finished it somewhere in my 20s, which I didn't remember at all. And then recently with my husband, he's never watched it, but I'm like, you're gonna love the show. He's from Massachusetts. You love the fall. You love all these sorts of things. I know you're gonna fall in love. He fell in love with the show. He just completely utterly did. And I want to say we started. I'm a huge Thanksgiving fan in the sense of I love giving thanks. I love being thankful. I don't want to go into the politics of it. I don't want to like, let's just skip that part right now because there's no need. But the act of giving thanks every day in my life, if there's something you need to know about me, is something I always do. So the fact that in the States, you kind of have a holiday for it, one thing leads to another. I remember it was last November, so it was really recently. He was like, okay, you really want me to watch Gilmore Girls? I know you love Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving. let's watch a Thanksgiving episode. It's literally one of the first episodes he
Oh,
watched.
oh, how
Literally,
fun.
like we started with like the
Deep
first
fried chew. I hope you watched
yeah.
that one.
Yeah,
Or was it
we
Bracebridge
did.
dinner? Or was it
It was
deep fried chew?
that one. I'm pretty sure
Yes,
it's
of
that one. The
course.
first one there is. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He fell in love. He's like, what is this show? What is the magic of it? Like I told you, like I know you well enough. So we literally went from that episode to literally the first episode. And it took us, I don't know, from November to like literally February, March. I don't remember. Well, maybe April tops. I don't think even April. No, February. February, March.
Took you that long to watch the show?
Exactly. Which is really, really crazy fast considering everything plus a move. And including because we finished, I remember definitely for sure was February because it was our previous when we landed, it was like our previous place. And that's when we watched not A Day at a Time, that's a different show. What's it called? The reboot.
A Year in the Life.
A Year in Life, thank you.
Yeah.
So that's how fast we fell in love with it. We are already rewatching it because we started like it's not like back to back anymore by any means, but like it's our happy-go-lucky show now. He's just in love with it.
Yeah.
Fast forward, or not even fast forward, going back to the beginning of the sentence. I was watching it with him, but also watching it with you. So I had a whole bunch of Gilmore all around me, which is a really good feeling to have, especially around the holidays, just in general, doing like a whole bunch of like stressful life things. And it was like, oh, this is so nice. Plus you have like the community sense with your lives. And I'm like, that's why like I was always on it. And it was always really nice. And he was like, oh, you don't like, I don't want to watch it with her because I want to watch it like my way, which makes sense, especially if you're watching it for the first time. But he loves also like little
but now that
you say the behind the scenes.
Now that he's made it through it, has he watched an episode with me? Like have you guys
we have a couple of times with you watching it, depending on their crazy work schedules. We have seen not many lives because we're 9 hours apart, but still, he does love a lot of the behind the scenes.
Okay, let's talk about the fact that I'm watching this on TikTok. So I didn't watch the show when the show was on the air. Occasionally there'd be an episode that I would see randomly, or maybe they would have like a crew lunch and they would show it, but it wasn't often that they would do that. And I never watched the first 10 episodes of the show ever, period. I didn't even know what happened in those episodes until Netflix. I might have seen a random one here and there, but I didn't watch the episodes until I started watching it on TikTok. And I started watching it in around October, but then I was watching it with a group of friends on TikTok and that sort of disbanded. So I was like, well, we're going to restart and do it again. And so we started watching it. And I can't exactly remember when. I think it was like November, December. Started watching it again and starting it from the beginning, revealing things that maybe most fans don't know. Like, oh, look at that background guy. That's the same guy that would stand in for this person. And he gets a line later on in another scene. Or, oh my God, why is that person wearing this? And you look at, like, I'll just point out random things that you
really
might not
do.
know.
It's so cool though.
And most people that watch it with me have watched the show, 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 million times. And I will point out stuff that they never noticed because it's not something you're supposed to notice. But exactly. I notice it because it's something that we were trained. My job as a costumer is to look for the details that you would normally not see so that it wouldn't distract the viewer. And basically pointing out mistakes or maybe just random facts. Sometimes it's a little bit of both. But it's funny because in the moments that were, let's say they were a mistake, something that we did that maybe we shouldn't have done or we didn't catch it in time. And I go back to those moments of pit in the stomach. Oh my God, I'm going to get fired. I did this bad thing, and ultimately when it comes down to it, we're working 19, 20, sometimes 22 hours a day on Gilmore Girls.
That's insane.
In a day.
You told us that is insane.
There were several occasions where I worked a 22-hour day and I know exactly where I was those days. Mostly we were doing between 15 to 19 hours on a daily and closer to the 18-hour per day, 70 plus hour work weeks. We would start on Monday. We would start it at, for me, crew call would be 7 o'clock, but I would come in with the actor. And if Emily Gilmore needed to be there at 5:42, I was there at 5:12 or earlier, depending on what time her call time was. Kelly Bishop had a really early call, I'd be there. And then when they wrapped at the end of the night, which would be usually at least 14 hours after crew call, so 7 o'clock, 14 hours after that, and then I would wrap about 45 minutes after camera wrapped. So not only was I in an hour and a half before then, I was out an hour and a half after that. So our work weeks were so long. And we would get home on a Monday, on a Saturday, probably 8 o'clock on a Saturday, because we had kept shooting later and later and later. And they have to break, the actors have 12-hour turnarounds. The crew at that time had a 9-hour turnaround. So 9 hours after you left each night, you'd have to show up the next day. And that included your commute. So that was the time to get to work, go to sleep, shower, get dressed, get back in the car. So for me, and this goes back to the book, friends were important because I didn't see friends that often. I wouldn't go out to a bar and hang out. On the weekends, the last thing I want to do is see people. I'm doing laundry, I'm getting gas, I'm doing the basic things I need to do around the house. I'd go shop for one meal. And that was my life during the times. And we would shoot 10 months out of the year for Gilmore Girls. And we would have about a 2.5 month, it's like 2.5 month off, between that. And I would work on projects around the house when I was off, and we would have our parties. And you talked about Thanksgiving. One of our parties is in May for my birthday, which we were usually off work at that time. So I had time to clean up the house and do things. And the other party would be at Thanksgiving, the weekend of Thanksgiving. And that's where
that's
everybody,
like 6 months, you know what I mean? That's literally half and half. Yeah. My birthday's in April, and then I do like not a half birthday, but I know 6 months after it's October, so May, November.
Yeah, it was pretty much like a good 6 months between parties. Those were our main parties that we would have. And because Thanksgiving weekend is such a short weekend, not many people would try to fly home. A lot of people would stay in town. So it was a way for people to come to hang out at the house, see each other, have a meal that they didn't have to cook. A lot of they could cook, and it wasn't on Thanksgiving. We would do it the Saturday of Thanksgiving weekend. So, and that was our little tradition. And pretty much 90% of the parties, Keiko was always at it. Keiko came to almost all the parties. Ed Herman came to a couple of the parties. Alexis came to one of our parties. Just so many of the actors would always come. A lot of the people that go to Fan Fest would often come. And it was just became, and because of the parties, I got asked by, I don't know if you know about this, there's a book called The Gilmore Girls Companion. Have you heard about this? And it was done in 2007. I believe, no, it was done in 2008, because it was like a year or so, or maybe a couple years after Gilmore Girls ended. And there's this guy, his name's Aaron Berman, and he and his wife got together and were like, listen, we want to write a book about Gilmore Girls because there's not one on the market. And so we created like a little anthology of snippets from the very first episode to the very last episode. I introduced him. Somebody, he had contacted one or two of the actors who then every time they were asked a question they didn't know, they're like, why don't you ask Valerie? She was there. And so he finally got a hold of me, and then I helped him get maybe 10 more, 12 more actors to interview for the book. And if it hadn't have been for that book, I wouldn't have gone to the festivals. I wouldn't have, back to writing more about, and everything's connected. Like everything in my life
really is.
And I think about, like we were talking about age. I'm old. I just turned 50. Not that that's old for everyone, but some people that's old, some people that's young. And but everything you do in life, if you're 20 years old right now and you're 30 years old or you're 40 years old right now, you might not have accomplished the thing that you're put on this planet to accomplish. So don't give up in your dreams or your aspirations. because you just might not have crossed paths with the right person that's going to put you on that path yet. Just keep looking for whatever it is and keep being inspired by the things around you. I think that's where I'm going with this.
110 million gazillion percent. It's something that I talk about often through my TikToks, through the podcast, through just in general. I mean, it's part of my name, my podcast name, or my company name, the Always Believer, because I used to say always believe since I was a kid, and that there is light out there, that you are the light, that there's just something good out there, that there is, just to keep having faith and to keep believing, because the answer's always there. You know, like it's gonna happen. It's eventually gonna happen. You know, I talk a lot about manifestation, but also like putting in the hard work and putting the light work and the shadow work and like working through your emotions as well and all these sorts of things.
Yeah.
Because once you start lining up, the right people will fall into place because you're being more real with yourself. And I think we started this conversation because I was explaining the time difference. I'm like, how real your community is, how real my community is, the ones that I've created here with Team Flyer. Like, it's just what you see, kind of what you get. And that's at the end of the day, we do need more of that, because the more you are you, the more you're going to attract what you really want and you desire and what you deserve. Yeah. And that's a thing.
And you know, you have to set boundaries around that, because like for me right now, this is my path right now. I worked on Gilmore Girls. I'd work 70-hour weeks, 10 months of the year, 2 months off, where I would just basically not know what to do with myself because I wasn't being forced to do something, but I would keep busy. And then when that show ended, I discovered the world of day checking, which means you go in one day, you work, and then you go home and you don't think about it. You don't have the stress. Oh, and I was talking a little bit about the stress of discovering, like when there was the pit of the stomach and you'd have a problem that would happen on set. And now it's so funny. I'm not saying I created those moments so I could talk about it 20 years later. Who knew that was going to be a thing? But that I look back on these things that happened to me 20 years ago, where I would make a mistake and I thought it was the end of the world. And now it's like, oh, look, everybody loves the fact that there's a mistake there. They're enjoying that mistake.
Isn't that crazy cool though? And I feel like it happened only because of TV, because you visually see those mistakes, obviously, especially if you point them out. But even in quote unquote regular life, you know, like off screen, you might not visually see them, obviously, but you understand that you've made mistakes in the past, but those mistakes led you to who you are today. That reminds me of what you were saying before. We were not supposed to record by any means. That's not even the right word. We contacted each other once again late last year.
Yeah.
Kind of when you started, coincidentally, kind of when I started a rewatch with my husband Dylan. And we were asking you to be on because we're only 3 hours, whatnot. You were extremely busy, but we're doing different things. And I'm like, well, you know what? It's not meant to be. It's absolutely fine. And then you, out of the blue, you remembered me, which I'm very thankful for, of course, because once again, I haven't been in your lives in a while because we got 9 hours apart.
Remember, I have a really good memory. I don't forget people.
You have a good memory, and I also have a good memory as well. Like it's something that we have. You said two things that we also have in common. I have really good memory out of all the people I know, apart from you now, apparently. But in general, I'm known for that. Yeah. And I also love connecting people. I'm the typical person that I'm like, I meet you, and I'm like, okay, you're really good for this person, so I'm just gonna like, here, have a nice day. Like I'm just gonna guide you through like and whatever social media.
I am so proud of those connections. Like, have you ever? Like for me, I'll go to a friend's birthday party or a friend's event and I'll walk in the room and I'm like, how do you guys know each other? And they're like, through you, silly. We were at your birthday party 6 years ago and we've never stopped talking. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel so proud. I don't feel jealous. Like there's people that feel jealous that someone else is now better friends with their friend. And I'm like, I don't feel jealous. I feel proud. And happy and like excited for them that they've made friends with someone that has more time, because I clearly don't have enough time in my life to be friends with everyone at that level of friendship. I was last night, we were talking on, because I went live last night, we were talking about how sometimes it's better not to have friends that you talk to every single day. In fact, it is probably a better thing in your life for your own mental well-being that you have friends you talk to once every 6 months, once every week, but not every single day, because sometimes that type of maybe codependency is a little too much and you don't have the ability to grow as a person and move forward in what you're trying to do, because there's only so much you need to do this, you need to do that. It's nice to be able to see that person take off and actually do it, figure it out, because we all work at our own rate of time and space and can't always do things with the quickness or ease. There's maybe 20 billion things you have to do before you can get to this point to do the thing you're supposed to do. And don't be frustrated by it, but always be moving forward with what you need to do in your life.
Completely agree once more. I was actually talking about this with a friend today, that a lot of what I do as a businesswoman, as an entrepreneur, as a content creator, you know, if you're with me since day one, whether today's your day one, you're gonna see how I'm growing. I'm once again, what you see is what you get. So I talk a lot about my spiritual growth. I talk about like when I do my shadow work, I do my rituals or like my health, like all these sorts of things, saying at the same time how I'm focusing my podcast, how I'm doing a whole bunch of different things to get to where I want to be, right? But if you haven't been following me at all, and all of a sudden you see me having that ideal role and having that ideal job and having all that like fame, money, whatever you want to call it, kind of lifestyle, you get kind of I forgot the word right now, but
jealousy,
no, you get that like it's something with slash, I don't know,
false sense of being.
It happens with me all the time.
That's okay.
The words escape. It's like it'll come to me whenever we're like, oh my god, it was this. Anyways, what happens? You're just like, oh my god, you got famous, or you got this role overnight, or you became so and so overnight.
It looks
and I'm
easier
like,
than it is.
Exactly. And I'm like, well, no, we gotta like, you don't go from 0 to 100 in just one day. And this either goes for fame, for business, for Hollywood, for what you want to call it, but also goes for like mental well-being. You know what I mean? Because I also share a lot of my childhood on the podcast, and every time I'm sharing a lot more of these serious topics. One, because I have gone to therapy to overcome them, and two, because I want to start being like even more of an advocate about them to,
100%.
You know,
yeah,
because we're a community, we're not alone. So a lot of the topics that I've been talking about, it's like, oh my God, but look at you, you're still standing, you're doing this, you're doing that. I'm like, yeah, but I'm also going to show you the hard work behind it. So you understand that you do have to take 100 steps in order to get to there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you do have to put in that kind of effort and work with whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
So because basically what happens is that we still live in a world where it looks like what you just said, it looks easier than what it is. You know, I remember this. It was also a Lizzo quote really recently, and I have talked to her recently as well, because I'm doing stuff with her and her new show. And she was like, "Oh my God, I get so many people telling me that, like, either not only your followers, but just people who like are also in the industry, like, oh, you got famous overnight, like all those edit." And she's like, "I've been doing this for 10 years plus. Like, I've been doing this for a while. All this inner work and inner love and inner,
Yeah. You know what's interesting about that? Like, there are definitely people that have had a long path to get to where they are. And there are some people that things happen to without their want, desire, or need or to have that happen. And with fame, it's not something you should always aspire to try to find, because you can't always control it once you have it. You know, and you don't want to be in that situation where, one, it either comes so quickly that it's gone by the time that you don't want it, or that you have no sense of real life. Like, you can't walk down the street because you're so famous that people are going to bug you every time you walk down. You're going to be perceived as something else just because you didn't have time in your mental space to be able to engage with people. And it's a hard thing. I'm glad I'm not famous. Like, I didn't choose the path of fame. I chose the path of, I'm just going to work. I'm going to do a good job. I'm going to do the best that I can do. And I'm grateful for what happens in me in life. And it's fun. I mean, it's fun. Like, for example, I remember one time, so you remember TJ on Gilmore Girls?
Mm-hmm.
Michael DeLuise. So Michael DeLuise and I became really good friends. And one time we went to, he had invited me to go to Renaissance Fair. Now,
Very
that in
appropriate.
itself is kind of ironic because his character on Gilmore Girls
Exactly.
is
That's
a
why.
Renaissance player. And this was after Gilmore Girls had ended. And so I go, and not even thinking like, oh, funny, your character was, you know, a Renaissance guy on Gilmore Girls. So we're just having a good time. He, you know, he went because he just wanted to have a good time. And he's the kind of guy that likes to support artists, and he's very personable. If you were ever to meet him, he was always like super sweet and nice to any of the fans, because he grew up in fandom. Like, he grew up the child of a very famous actor. His parents were both, well, his dad was super famous. His mom was also an actress. And his brothers were both, you know, actors as well. And so he grew up in this like complete bubble of fame without having to do anything, you know? And so we're walking, and I remember we're walking, and somebody comes up to him and goes, "Oh my God, TJ on Gilmore Girls, blah, blah, blah." And they're just like, and he just quietly and politely goes, "Oh, you like Gilmore Girls? Well, this is my friend Valerie. She worked on the show." And like, totally,
Let me pass the baton to the
we pass the baton, and I'm just like, yeah, you don't want to talk to me. I'm just the costumer. Like, I'm not anybody that you're gonna care about, you know. And I mean, they were just happy that they were being engaged with, but he did it in such a polite way. He knew how to like handle kind of diffusing, not diffusing in a bad way, just like he, you know, he didn't want it to be all about himself. Like, he was, you know, he's had to go through life being a person that's in the limelight without a choice in the matter.
Exactly. That is also tough. That's a whole different conversation to have. But that is also tough when you're in the limelight without asking for it. Just because, I mean, in this case, yeah, he is TJ from Gilmore Girls, so we can recognize him.
Yeah.
But imagine if you weren't into acting, but your whole family is, or if, I don't know. But like I said,
I mean, Alexis Bledell's brother had to change his name.
Oh, wow.
Because you know, having that last name and looking like her, you know, he had to change his entire name so that he could have his own identity as a person. And I mean, can you imagine? Because he's very shy, so is she. I mean, you know, it's like they're both very shy, they're very introverted, and you know, not, sometimes you don't realize as an actor what you're getting into before that happens. And I'm glad that I've had the life that I've been able to lead. You know, as a crew person, I've enjoyed what I've done. I've gotten to work on some fun projects. I've gotten to meet some really interesting people. Some of them are nice, some of them are not. Just like any profession you work in, you're going to love some people and you're not going to love all the people, and they're just people. Like, when it comes down to it, actors are just people. They are just like you and me. And most of them are good, decent human beings. Most of them are, like, a good percentage, just like people. Most of them are like
people, because that's what they are. They're just people. Like, I understand, like, for example, for me, I got like crazy excited talking to you for the first time way back when, which it feels like forever ago, but it's not really. But it's because it's like, not only because you worked like on my favorite one of my favorite shows, it's not particularly that, but it's more of like you're in that kind of world where you make magic come to life. I'm the kind of person that, yes, like, for example, Alexis did an amazing job. Do I remember all their names right now? No, because I have a good memory, but with names I was like, wait, what's her name again?
Alexis, Lauren,
exactly, etc. Melissa McCarthy, which I absolutely adore.
Oh, yes.
Wonderful jobs. Emily Gilmore, everyone, obviously. But at the end of the day, they wouldn't be who they were without you.
Well, I mean, someone else would have done my job.
Yes,
it's not to say
I'm trying to say, it's like, it's the whole crew, it's the whole staff. It's not just the actors. Without
every department doing their stuff, nothing would be on
Exactly.
camera. You know, it's like we all are part of the mechanism to make film and anything happen. And I like being a part of it because I think there's so many fun, and believe me, being on set can be the most boring thing in the world. If you want to make someone get really super bored, have them stand on set for a week. 5 minutes, fun. A week, oh my God, you're gonna not want to ever come back ever again, especially if you're there and can't go home, because we don't know what time we never know what time we're going home. We never know what time we're going to work the next day. We never know what's going to happen the next day. And actually, in a way, I thrive on that because it's the lifestyle that I chose, and it's
Exactly.
the known quantity. If I knew that I was going to be working on 20 different projects, I would probably be like, oh my God, that sounds like a lot of work. Like, it's nice not knowing. It's
It is.
weird.
I mean, I have the same kind of personality trait. I thrive on that rather than doing like a typical 9 to 5, whereas other people
Yeah.
would thrive on the 9 to 5, for example.
Yeah.
You know? And that's what, like, at the end of the day, that's what it is, because it goes to show it looks easier always from the other side. It looks funner usually, but like, no, it takes a lot
The
of
grass
hard work.
is always
Whether
greener, yeah.
exactly, whether it's through Hollywood, that's exactly what we're talking about. But even when I'm talking about like mental health, the fact that I'm able to talk about, I was sexually abused when I was a child. I can talk about it right now.
Yeah.
Why? Because I went through all the steps, and now I give talks and do a whole bunch of stuff about it.
Yeah.
And everything else in between, you know what I mean? And that's not to go super dark by any means, but once again, it's like what you're saying. I remember what you were saying the first part of the episode, and the first part of the two-parter, we ended up talking about death, but in a very sweet way, in a good way, because like you've already gone through those feelings, and it's you know what I mean? But for somebody else, it's like they're still in the day one. I'm like, that's why I'm like, don't compare your day one with someone else day 100. And remember, there's still X amount of steps. Doesn't have to be the same amount of steps. Doesn't mean the same same road, but
it also, like, without what happened to you, you would not be the person you are today. And it's easy to like think like, oh, I don't want anything to ever to happen to a human being. But then if nothing ever happens to them,
how do we grow?
How are they growing? Like, I mean, I'm not saying have something happen to you. By all means, don't have, especially that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But
but like what if and if you switch the narrative and say, like, what if before you were born, you knew what the script was, you read the script, and you chose the role? Like, what if that, I think, did you freeze? No, you didn't freeze.
No,
what if you chose the role for whatever that script was, and you go into this body and you're living it, and it's an experience that you have to experience, and what you do with it in that role, what path you take to help others or to help yourself or to get out of that situation, and realize, and I think this is something that I always talk about too, is people are always like last night we were talking about someone got blocked on TikTok, or someone got blocked by someone on social media, and they were talking about, oh, so and so blocked me and I don't know why, and I really, really want to know why. And I said to him, I go, it's not about you. It has nothing to do about you. All it has to do about the mental state of the person that did the deed, and the fact that they were not capable of communicating in a compassionate way to say whatever it was you might have done was affecting them. It's all about them, their boundaries and their mental health, and not that you did something specific to them. And you need to, like, always remember that it's not about you.
Exactly. And it's oh my gosh, I freaking adore this conversation, and I love that it's like it's the same wavelength without a doubt. Because literally, I think I was looking through my page today, because I also have a webpage, alwaysbeliever.com, and I was going through my old posts, kind of organizing stuff, creating content as always. And one of the quotes, which I'm probably not going to remember right now to the T, but it was like, oh goodness. just just be yourself, because no one cares about you anyway. But it kind of like, it sounded better than what that, but in a good way, kind of like
That's funny.
everyone's more focused on themselves rather than something else, rather than, in this case, like the point of that post was not to sound super drastic by any means, but it was like, post that picture,
Don't be so
go on
afraid
that
to
trip.
do it. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, go,
As
like,
long as
no
it's
one's
not
looking at.
offensive to someone.
Yeah, exactly, please, come on. It's like, be kind, respectful here. But
Yeah.
like, who cares what you do in a good way, because no one's looking anyway. No one cares as much as you think they care, in that kind of sense.
So,
When you're like,
yeah.
so many people come up to me, like, I love solo dates. I love taking myself out on dates all the times for as long as I can remember. I can go to a concert, I can go to the beach,
Oh,
I
yeah.
can go everywhere. And they're like, oh my God, how can you do that? Like, have like a lunch by yourself. Everyone's gonna be looking. And you're like, no one's gonna be looking. Believe me, the last thing they're gonna be doing is looking at you having lunch by yourself. But
And
what
if
are they
you
gonna
are,
think?
wave.
Exactly. Hi. Have a nice meal.
Hi,
Thank
how
you
are
very
you?
much.
You know what? It's so funny. I actually am more productive when I go out by myself than when I'm out with other people, because like when I'm out by myself, especially like it goes back to the book, like if I go somewhere, I'll always bring my book with me, and I'll be like, I will always make a point of trying to have one conversation with one person, whether it's just to, make a connection, or who knows, maybe someone's going to buy that book. You never know. And so you never know unless you try, and you have a conversation. We were, every time I go somewhere, I'm like, hey, how are you? Like, and you make that connection, and you have to advocate for yourself.
You do.
But like, there was this one time we were well, this is a dual thing, but Colin and I were going somewhere, and we got there a little bit early, and we pulled off to the side of the road where there was a telescope overlooking the harbor. And I had ice cream in the back of the car, and I also had the book in the car. And we were going to an event where we were going to bring ice cream somewhere. And I saw this couple, they also pulled in at the same time, and they went to go take like a romantic photo by this, the harbor. And as we got out, I was like, hey, do you want me to take that photo for you? And they're like, oh yeah, sure. And so I took the photo for them. And then I went, oh my God, I should take a picture of the book with the telescope, just like a silly like Instagram story, right?
Exactly.
So I go take this picture. I go grab the book, and of course they're looking. And I'm like, oh, you're probably wondering why I've got this book. Oh, funny long story. Do you like ice cream? They're like, I love ice cream. And I'm like, and I go, well, I wrote an ice cream cookbook. And they're like, oh my God, and I go, do you want to see it? They're like, of course I want to see it. Did they want to see it 10 minutes before? They had no idea they were going to see it 10 minutes before. And then I said to them, I go, are you allergic to anything? And they went, no. And I said, do you want to try something? They're like, sure. I had ice cream in the back of the car. So I took the girl to the back of the car, and I gave her 9 tiny bites of each flavor of ice cream. She ended up buying a book, but we also had a conversation about flavors. And her family's from Jamaica. And on the islands at Christmas, they serve this punch out of Jamaica. Now, if you don't know what Jamaica is, it's hibiscus flower tea that is mixed with sugar, vanilla bean, and lemon. And so they make this punch at Christmas. And I said, you know what? I love Jamaica. I've always loved Jamaica. It's a drink that they'll serve in Mexican restaurants. I don't know if they serve it in Spain or not. Do they?
It's not that common. So no, as far as I'm concerned, but.
So I ended up formulating a sorbet for that moment that I ended up putting in the book because of that conversation, that random chance meeting with this person. Like, I would never have put that in the book had I not met that person hanging out. Like, you just don't know. Don't be afraid.
Just exactly. That's what I also always said. Talking to a friend literally yesterday about this, actually. It's like, it's surprising how many people don't try. And I'm like, no, this is all about encouraging people to try. Because I get asked a lot of time, like, how, for example, I get asked about you. It's like, oh my God, how did you get Valerie on the show? Or how did you get so-and-so on the show? I'm like, I just asked. I just literally asked. the worst thing I already have is the no. I'm sticking with the positive. You know what I mean? What if it
Exactly.
goes right? What if she is,
And also
you are
it's
super
how
wonderful,
you,
and like, it's just
sometimes it's also like how you ask. The
true. Oh my
way
God,
you say
yes.
the words, like it's very important in my job as a costumer. We are trying to get actors to put clothes on. Someone else has decided they should wear this, and they don't want to wear this because they're a little insecure. So you have to learn how to ask or how to suggest or how to reassure them in a way so that they trust you and know that what they're doing is going to be great and fine. And it's hard. It's a hard thing to do, but choosing your words and getting people to do the thing that they're going to do or they wanted to do, but maybe you just have to make it sound like it was their thought, you know. And it's important to being able to communicate with them.
Exactly. I do agree with that one. You have to learn how to ask, because it is someone else's time and energy. And especially when you do stuff for free, like this podcast randomly, all the people that I had on, it's like, well, it is free publicity as well, because we are going to, I'm going to promote your
Yeah.
book, and we talk about your book a lot, which is a win-win for both of us. But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, get up and ask, be nice about it. Please be nice to one another. And even if they say no, it's fine. You already had the no to begin with, but just keep going, keep asking, and then one door leads to another.
Always, always.
It's literally as simple as that. And even though it's a hard thing to do, you just need to take that first step. Just please take that first step too, whatever it is your
Absolutely.
goal is.
Absolutely. Now, and we were talking a little bit earlier about how sometimes, it's not about you always, right? And there was a situation that something happened on set one time, and it was, I take care of background. Usually these are the people that are behind the actors in the middle of the scene. And one day, after 3 days of working with this one guy, he comes up to the back of the trailer, and it was his last day on set, and he goes, I just want, what's your name? And I said, Valerie. And he was very upset. And I was like, this is really weird. Like, I try to be very nice to the background all the time. It's just one of the things that I try to do. And he goes, what's your name? And I said, Valerie. And he goes, you were the worst cop. And I was like, what did I do? And I started to take it personally. And I remembered having a conversation with him on day one where he had mentioned one of my friend's names, that he knew her, that he was her son, but he wasn't her son. He was like the friend of a son. And so I contacted that friend and I said, listen, I just had a really weird experience with so-and-so. He says that he was your son. And he goes, she says, he's not my son. And I know he's not your son. And she goes, he's been telling everybody that he's my son. and I go, why would he say that? I was so nice to him. Why would he say that? And she goes, well, about a couple of years ago, he got into a car accident, and he had some brain trauma from it. And after that happened, and she told me that, I realized that every time someone says something to you that sounds a little off, it's probably because something is wrong with them and not wrong with you, not necessarily wrong with what you did, especially when you know that you didn't do anything. It's exactly. It's like, and sometimes you just have to step back and let people experience and go through whatever they're going through and help them in whatever way you can, but also not take it personally if they're not accepting whatever. And you can't just keep fighting to find out answers, because you're never going to find out answers, because sometimes it just is what it is.
Exactly.
It's unintentional.
It's literally that. Don't take everything personally, which is a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Because I also have to learn my lesson with that. I think I by now already did, to the point of like, well, it's them with themselves.
Did I just say something to you that is like clicking with something that you've experienced?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Recently we live with roommates, stuff like that you're like, wait, I didn't do anything, and I know I didn't, but it's just like, the way it comes off or the way that, you know, some people react. It's kind of like, well, that's you
Oh,
with
you know what?
yourself.
You know what? I just remembered another story. So I was working on Bunheads, and well, actually, I probably shouldn't say the name of the show, but I worked on Bunheads too. Okay, I was working on a show, and these two costumers, I was day playing. I came into the show, I was day playing, and these two costumers who were working on the show together hated each other. Absolutely could not stand working with each other, could not say a nice thing to the other, had a very poor working relationship. And I am talking to one of them who's like, I just don't understand it. There's nothing I can do. She's just so mean to me. And then like the other one's just being like really mean to her. You could see it. Everybody is being, and then vice versa, they're being mean to each other because they're not being nice to each other. It was propagating itself where they were just being mean. And I said to the one costumer, I said, listen, this is a job. I said, your job is to, you know, be fine and be nice and just let things go. You can't take things personally. But what you need to do is when you walk into that job tomorrow, instead of being angry and upset, just say, good morning, how are you? Mm-hmm. And at some point in time, maybe that other person will realize that you're not trying to be mean to them and they might start being nice to you. But if you're going to match her anger and she's going to match her anger, it's just going to be like this the entire time. You're just going to be butting heads. And sometimes you just need to kill her with kindness. Every time you say good morning and say it in a meaningful way, in the back of your mind, you're saying it negatively, but you're really saying it positively with your voice. And maybe at some point in time, it'll switch. I don't think they ever worked together again, but I don't think she was capable of actually doing what I suggested. But ultimately, you know, we're not all meant to be friends, but exactly. Sometimes we have to interact, and sometimes we just have to like find the people that are meant to be the people that you're supposed to work with and be with.
Exactly. I mean, that's kindness matters, and Kill Them With Kindness by Selena Gomez is a hit of a song, by the way. It's not a promotion for Selena Gomez, even though I do adore her. But I have it in the back of my mind, like that song, whenever like a situation arises, because it's really perfect for the situation. And that's the thing at the end of the day, when with roommates, with coworkers, with people like that in your life, when you have to coexist, it's she's going through a rough time right now. She's taking out on me and on other people as well. And you're like, well, I'm not doing anything because I barely know you. Like, I don't talk to you. You know what I mean? There's no connection there. It's just the way that she is. And it's like my previous me, my old me from many, many years ago would have been probably fighting back. Like, oh, but what did I do? What did it, you know what I mean? Right now it's like, I'm not about saying good morning. I'm going to keep saying hi. I'm going to, with a big smile because you know, I'm good.
And or the other situation is if you are capable of confronting her in a positive way.
Exactly.
And saying, listen, I'm noticing that you're not, every time I try to talk to you, you meet me with anger and I don't know what I did. If there's something that I can do differently, please let me know. But you know, it's, I know so many people are so afraid of confronting other people, and I don't know why. I always do it. I'm flat out. I'm like, what is going on?
I think I completely understand you. I know it's taken me some time to get to that, and now I am that. And I'm also, people who are Spanish are gonna laugh, but I'm very Spanish. We're very blunt. We're very direct. My husband can definitely vouch for that because cultural differences, even though I grew up in the States and I have the States accent, I also grew up half Spanish, and we're very, the stuff we say and how we act, it's kind of like, you can tell there's a big cultural difference as well. That's a conversation for another day. But it took me a while to get also to where I am today because of past traumas, because I was a people pleaser when I was a child to a teenager, you know, like because XYZ. But now I'm like, no, I want to talk to you, which I have before. And then I realized, oh, it's you with you. You've got a relationship right now that you don't want, and you're taking out on the world. Fine, that's okay. It sucks. It kind of stings. It's weird. But I'm like, does it really affect me? Or we're just, you know what I mean? In this particular case, it just like, I'm gonna keep saying good morning with a smile on my face and just continue on my day. And then I have certain other cases in the previous moments of my life and probably current where you take accountability for your actions when, when you have to confront. I think confronting, it's scary because no one wants to hear where you have failed. You know what I mean? It's like, or what you've done technically wrong, or like how you hurt someone. That's an annoying thing to, but you have to sit through discomfort to grow as a person. And
you do. And you also have to be prepared for whatever the consequences are of that action. And when you think about it, like, do you really have it in the first place? Are you losing it, or did you never have it? Or is this a fake thought of having it? Like a friend of mine came out recently to her parents as being transgender, and their reaction was better than what I thought it was going to be. It wasn't happy by any means, but she's alive. and ultimately she's now able to live her real life. And I think that sometimes she was so worried about losing whatever the comfort and security of having a place to live, and wasn't able to be her true self, that it was eating her up inside. And now she's free. And
I think that's such an important story to tell.
But her parents are no longer going to be part of her life, at least at this point in time. And in a way,
that's kind of better, because and I know we're definitely going to wrap this episode up ridiculously soon because we've been talking for a while, but as we wrap up this topic, which is a whole big one, I talk a lot about breaking generational trauma. I talk a lot about my family stuff, and without getting too personal, but personal enough to be like, well, I don't talk to them anymore because XYZ. Because
and that's okay.
They've overstepped those boundaries, and I couldn't really be myself. And is it forever? I don't know. But right now, this is where I'm at in my life, and that's important to me because I want to be myself. I want to be able to express myself in every way, shape possible, and be appreciated and loved, and many other things surrounding that. Once again, it's just a quick sentence summary.
One thing I talk about a lot is, and people sometimes understand and they sometimes don't understand it, and it's forgiveness. Yep. And the forgiveness, okay, and I think sometimes it gets a little bit misconstrued, or you can not accept it when you're in a place of anger. But for example, this is just a silly story. When my dad, wonderful human being, my aunt, wonderful human being, my aunt comes up to my dad one day and says, Pat, I forgive you. And my dad was like, for what? Like, what did I do? Apparently, she was very upset at him for something. She explained what it was. He apologized and said he was sorry, and they moved on. But he had no idea that she was upset at him for this particular thing. And, it wasn't like she was being aggressively mean towards him when he would see her, but she was deeply affected by it, and enough where it hurt her. And she forgave him and was able to let that go. It doesn't, and now let's say in the other scenario, she forgave that person and they didn't accept her forgiveness. What matters is not that they didn't accept the forgiveness. What matters is that she was able to let this go. And forgiveness is about moving past and moving forward in your life and being able to not have that part of your life affect you anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. I've fallen in love with you even more, Valerie. I have fallen in love, I swear. I talked about this today with a good friend of mine because we were just venting and talking and all sorts of spiritual talk and whatnot, and this aligns with this and forgiving. And I also uploaded a TikTok about it because I'm very real, and it's part of one of my like letters and stuff like that. So I show other people like, hey, this is not how you should do it by any means. No, this is like part of the process. It's an idea for you to see it, And I'm like, oh, I have forgiven this person. Doesn't mean I want to be talking to this person.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean
you don't have to talk to him ever again.
Exactly. But I have forgiven because I'm choosing with all my love and heart in the world to finally let that part go and release and surrender and be like, I'm at peace now because I've chosen to forgive this.
Yeah.
After my process of rage and anger and all these sorts of things, after all that, of course, because every single emotion is okay. Like have them all, it's fine. But remember, like the end goal for you to grow, for you to become the best version of yourself, for you to know, like love yourself as well, you gotta forgive, you gotta surrender and let go. And life is way too short to hold grudges or to be like, oh, this person 20 years ago or two. Like, no, it's okay, just move on. Just it's fine, it's okay to be hurt. It sucks and it's dark and it's deep, but you can come out of the other side if you really want to.
Well, and also what's interesting too with the same respect is 20 years ago someone might have said something or done something to you 20 years ago, but ultimately you're the one that's holding on to that 20 years thing. They could care less. They probably didn't even know they did it. They have no clue. I remember when Facebook started, I got a friend request from this girl that was one of the people that I would have absolutely said was my bully in grade school. And I was like, oh, hell no, I am not friending this person, right? And one day I accidentally hit accept and I went, oh my God, what did I do? What did I do? Now, flash forward a couple years. My dad is dying. He is like on his deathbed and I'm like making little comments on Facebook about it. And I get a note from her saying, oh my God, Valerie, my heart is going out to you. I'm so sorry for your dad, your loss. It's just very touching. Thank you for sharing your story. And I realized she was not the same person that she was when she was 8 years old on the playground, like that she was not the same little kid that was cruel to me in third grade and in fourth grade and fifth grade. And that, you know what, sometimes people grow up and it was okay. Like I didn't need to physically go like, I forgive you for being an asshole at that age, but because I didn't need to, I have forgiven.
Exactly.
She doesn't need to know that she did these things. It's not gonna, she's not gonna care one way or the other. But it was such a like relief knowing that accidental, oh my God, I accepted, yes, was actually not a bad thing. And get out of your comfort zone with things like that.
It's interesting how like, and it's something I always say, it's an Alice in Wonderland quote. I'm surprised I haven't quoted any more Disney in these episodes because there's a lot to go off on Disney or Pixar with me. But one of those is I wasn't the same person I was 5 minutes ago.
True.
So if you weren't the same person you were 5 minutes ago, they weren't the same person they were 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And then it goes both ways. It goes not only that way, but also goes like some people are still clinging on to the old you because that's the part they could have controlled.
Yeah.
Once you start growing and realizing who you are, like your friend who's transgender, finally she's free, finally, they no longer hold control. Yeah. And that's where the forgiveness comes in. And that's where that part comes in of like, oh, I'm my own person. I stand my own ground. And I know that I'm forever changed and growing because I'm not the same person I was this morning or 5 minutes ago. And that's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Because that means I'm growing, I'm learning, and I'm celebrating life.
Never stop learning.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh my goodness. We're definitely finally wrapping up, even though we can talk for hours on end, and especially in this kind of rate, because you're definitely my vibe, energy. You're definitely part of Team Flyer. Like this is what we talk about. This is literally conversations like these. This is why I created this platform, to make sure that like people have the conversations like these on air, so they feel more aligned, and we're like, hey, they're also going through it, and hey, even if when you worked in Hollywood or like whatever, it doesn't matter your profession. It's like we're people, they're people, we're all people, and we're just here to look out for one another and to really be the best us we can be. Without a doubt.
It was lovely chatting with you. I'm glad we could finally do this.
Definitely. As we wrap up, I always ask my guests 3 questions. The first one is, they're really quick, don't worry about it. But the first one is
describe
yourself in 3 words.
Ooh, I don't know if it's quick to say that.
Well, that's also true. This one we don't know. It depends.
Those are the things that are harder when it's 3 words. Ice
Yeah.
cream, costumes, no, art, ice cream, and creativity. Actually, it would be more like creativity, inspiration, and friendship.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree with those.
More.
The little that we know each other, yeah, I think those are pretty spot on. What are you grateful for?
Time. Because I feel like there's just only so much of it that you get. And the older you get, the less you seem to have, and the more you cherish the time that you've had.
Well, that's a beautiful thought right there to end the episode. And last but not least, where can we find you, my darling?
Well, I go by Valerie's Cat I Scream. Now, the spelling is a little weird, so I'm going to break it down. Valerie, spelled Valerie. Cat, like your kitty cat. I, like your eyeball. Scream, like you're screaming for your life. And pretty much if you type that in anywhere, you'll find me. You'll find a pink ice cream cone. And it's pretty easy. Just put it all together in one as a hashtag and you'll find me.
And basically everywhere. I definitely will tag you, of course, and like
Thank
everywhere.
you.
Plus, you also have a website with the same name.
Yes.
But yeah, you're definitely the same name on TikTok, on Instagram, basically.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to get the book, we me as in me. I have a book. It's $20 for the book and I'll sign it. But if you want to do a very fun special thing, I've been doing custom signings for $75 and we'll do it live on social media. And I will draw anything for about 30 minutes to your heart's desire. Like if you have a special scene from Gilmore Girls you want me to draw, just remember it's 30 minutes. So you get however much detail, but it's fun. If you watch my live, when I'm live on TikTok, I draw a scene from each of the episodes that the audience picks, and I do it in like 30 minutes. And sometimes they're good, and sometimes they're quirky and fun. But it's a lot of fun.
That's just who you are, and that's perfect by itself.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Oh my god, I'm excited for that. And I'm excited to try your ice cream and just hang out more. Definitely have more talks like these. Oh my goodness, I need more talks like this in my life. Yes, to the yes.
Fun. It was lovely chatting with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, thank you for like remembering me, even though I know you have a good memory, but still, it's really, really nice. Thank you for listening, Team Flyer. Thank you for listening to this whole episode, to every single episode you've listened to. If you're interested in knowing more, if it's your first episode with me, thank you very much once again. I have 3 seasons of tons of inspirational stories about so many different people. We have so many different guests. We also have Motivational Mondays. There's so much content, and there's more content on TikTok, and it's all free. So come on over, like, subscribe, do your thing, share. If you have a Gilmore Girls fan in your life, share this episode as well, because we did talk a lot about it, both this one and the previous. The first part of the story. This is a 2-parter. That's right. That was an incredible one. That's yeah. So anyways, thank you so much. We'll definitely see you soon and have a beautiful day. Bye.
Bye.